natural bridge on Otterbrine Road, which is a perfectly natural place to talk about hoofprints from the past. We have an exciting project where you have an opportunity to contribute your stories, your photographs, your first-person accounts to a booklet we are compiling called Hoofprints from the Past. If you would like to participate in this exciting project, our contact information is listed in the video description. We're standing here at Main Street in Brandenburg, Kentucky, which is where General John Hunt Morgan made his famed crossing across the Ohio River. Here he met up with Thomas Hines, who had led some advanced troops into the area, and together they had captured two boats, the Alice Dean and the J.T. McCombs, which were standing here waiting for Morgan's men. They crossed from here in Brandenburg, Kentucky, on the Ohio River, across the river, over into Indiana, at a small town called Morven's Landing. Morven's Landing was a ghost town somewhat, but Morgan's men did fire and knock down the last standing house in Morven's Landing. It took them 17 hours to make the crossing into Indiana. July 7th, 1863. Morgan's CSA cavalry arrived here, captured steamers John B. McCombs and Alice Dean. Next day, they began crossing the river. Indiana militia fired on them but fled under return fire. Alice Dean was burned after the crossing. Morgan went on to northeastern Ohio, where he surrendered July 26th. He was imprisoned at Columbus, Ohio. He escaped November 24th and returned south. Morgan's headquarters. This house, built 1832, owned in 1863 by Colonel Robert Buckner, War of 1812 veteran, was headquarters July 7th through the 8th of the CSA General J.H. Morgan. Raiders crossed the river on captured steamers, interrupted as the U.S. gunboat Elk arrived. They exchanged fire and then Elk retired, ammunition exhausted. After crossing the river, CSA burned steamer Alice Dean. The hulk is at the river bottom to the west. Despite naval and militia opposition, Commanding General John Hunt Morgan and his cavalrymen crossed the Ohio River to begin their Indiana raid, here in Indiana at Morven's Landing. We're here at Morven's Landing, where Morgan landed with his men. After they crossed the Ohio River, they were on their own. So in order to secure more supplies, they had to spread out across the countryside, across Harrison County. Otterbrine Cemetery near Morven's Landing. We're standing at the grave of the son of Colonel John Timberlake, who was instrumental in commanding the forces in the southern part of the county. Frakes Mill. In the Morgan's raid story in this neck of the woods, there were three mills on Buck Creek. Lopp's Mill, which the raiders burned because he refused to accept Confederate money as payment for the mill. Squire Boone's, which was untouched, and Frakes Mill, which stood here at this spot and has one of the John Hunt Morgan Heritage Trail markers at it. The mill was not burned, and Basil Duke, Morgan's brother-in-law, camped here for the night. Jordan Cemetery, at the grave of Reverend Peter Glenn, who was shot and killed on July 9, 1863 by Morgan's raiders. He lived across the road. He had his house and his farm across the road, and he's buried here in Jordan Cemetery. Morgan's Confederate dead. Private Green Bottomer. Private John Dunn. Private Albert Womack. 8 unknown dead. 40 wounded. And here we are at the Battle of Corydon Park. Now it's important to remember two things. Number one, The battle line stretched out all the way from the Amsterdam Road to the Mockport Road to the Laconia Road. So everything didn't happen in this, but this is a park that commemorates it. It's part of the Harrison County Parks Department. Secondly, there are only 2 battles north of the Mason-Dixon line that are officially recognized. The Battle of Gettysburg and the Battle of Corydon. And this is where Morgan's Raiders came together and clashed with Home Guards. So it was a quite short-lived battle, only about 30 minutes, and then the defenders hightailed it back downtown to Corydon. The Harrison County Fairgrounds would have been in existence in 1863 since it was founded in 1860. So Morgan and his men would have passed by this on their way downtown. It's also significant to the Battle of Corydon history because the rumor is that many Confederate dead were buried on the hillside over here to the west. And then later, long after the battle, for many years, sporadically, there were reunions where people who had participated or who wanted to commemorate the event would gather here at the Harrison County Fairgrounds to commemorate that battle. And then, of course, as the years went on, there were less and less to participate, and we still acknowledge it with a variety of activities today. As the Raiders came into Corydon, on the east side they encountered the first structure that stood on this site. It was the former Corydon Presbyterian Church. Remember, through all of this, the Raiders are moving quickly. They can't be hampered by such things as prisoners and injured personnel. So they quickly converted this Presbyterian church that stood on this site into a hospital to nurse their Confederate wounded. The first Confederate flag was known as the Stars and Bars, was used from March 1861 until May 1863. Number 23 in the flags of Corydon. Corydon Town Square. Just like today, the town square was a happening place on July 9th, 1863. As Morgan and his men rode into town, captured the town, and ran up the Confederate flag. Morgan's Raiders took 350 members of the Home Guard and citizens prisoner. They held them here in the town square. But remember, they didn't want to keep prisoners because they were on the move. General Hobson was in hot pursuit. So the prisoners were quickly released. Also here on the square is where the Harrison County Courthouse was located, right behind me. What was previously the first state capitol. And the county treasury was robbed as well by Morgan's men. After Morgan triumphantly took over the town, he took time for a little rest and relaxation at the Kintner House, which in 1863 stood right here at the corner of Capitol and Beaver. While he was there at the Kintner House, the innkeeper, Miss Sally Kintner, triumphantly came in and presented him with a newspaper explaining what had happened to the Confederate troops under General Lee at Gettysburg. Once again, he knew Indiana was not a safe place for him. General Hobson was pursuing him. General Lee was not victorious. So he was anxious to leave town as quickly as possible. The site of the Red Mill at Mulberry and Chestnut, back in those days, Chestnut Street, our main street, was known as Mill Street. The Red Mill operated from 1834 until 1926, so it stood 4 stories high, and this was a bustling corner in the day. When John Hunt Morgan came on that fateful July 9th of 1863, the owner was able to save the mill from being burned by paying a ransom of $800 to Morgan. The Westfall House, one of Corydon's oldest homes, which stands in the shade of the Constitution elm, was also, coincidentally, the home of Colonel Lewis Jordan, who was commander of the Home Guards during the Battle of Corydon. Looking east on Chestnut Street, formerly known as Mill Street. Imagine a bustling road behind me. It was a toll road, and when John Hunt Morgan rode into town, he and his men shot and killed the toll keeper, William Heath, age 61, when he challenged them. Cedar Glade. Cedar Glade is the plantation home of the Kentner family and then the McGrains. During Morgan's raid, after the town had been captured, many people came here for refuge. Unfortunately, Morgan was able to launch a cannonball that landed in the yard of Cedar Glade, but no one was injured. Cedar Hill Cemetery, Corydon's oldest cemetery, which stands at the corner of Maple and Summit, has a really interesting section just after you come into the entrance, in which 3 unique characters from the Battle of Corydon story are interred. The one beside me here is Green Bottomer, a Confederate soldier who died in the Battle of Corydon, and he is buried here in Cedar Hill Cemetery. Just up the hill from Green Bottomer, you have the grave of Colonel Lewis Jordan, who served as the commander of the Home Guards during the Battle of Corydon. Just up the hill from Colonel Lewis Jordan, you have the grave of Miss Abby Slimmons, who died from the after effects of heat exhaustion in the following month of August, 1863. Hursttown. In the Hursttown community, Dennis Hurst was able to escape with 5 horses. Spear Hurst, however, was shot by Morgan's men when he refused to halt on their command. He died several days later. New Salisbury. The next stop for Morgan and his men was the town of New Salisbury. The log cabin behind me would have been standing at that time and was probably used by Morgan's men as a meeting place. Palmyra. This house once stood on the northeast corner but was moved when the church was built. When Morgan was at Palmyra, he received the news that General Hobson had abandoned his supply wagons, which were slowing him down. So he knew he had to move quickly, and they retreated towards Salem. This ends our Harrison County portion of the Morgan's Raid Tour. Hazelwood Park seems to be a fitting place to end our journey because the Hazelwood Hill back behind me is where the battle lines were formed for the Battle of Corydon. I hope you've enjoyed your trip traveling with us from Brandenburg, Kentucky, across the Ohio River, all the way through the Battle of Corydon, and then on north through New Salisbury and up to Palmyra. Now, here's where you come in, once again. Away from that straight line that we traveled, there were numerous incidents that happened in neighborhoods, in specific families, and we are creating a booklet that will outline each of those incidents that are contributed and submitted to me. So we really hope you can contribute to Hoofprints from the Past, so we'll have a comprehensive listing of some of the incidents that happened in Harrison County during Morgan's raid. Thank you for helping us in our attempt to fulfill our mission statement to preserve, protect, promote, and interpret the rich history of Harrison County, Indiana.